This is Glenn Healy.
Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hi, this is Brian Burke.
This is Jordan Tutu.
This is Keith Morrison.
This is Kelly Rudy.
Hi, this is Scott Hartnell.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Tim McAuliffe of Sportsnet, and you're listening to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and whatever you're up to this week, maybe back to work, school, wherever you're at, hopefully things are rolling along for you. Today, we got a great episode on tap for you. Local doctor here from town. We'll get into that here shortly. Let's get on to our episode sponsors for the day. Carly Kloss and the team over at Windsor Plywood. They are the builders of the podcast studio table. If you haven't seen this sucker, two big old slabs of wood. They did the epoxy. It looks, wow, that's the best part of maybe the studio. Everybody comes in, wants to rub it. And if you're looking to build your own table, you should see some of the slabs of wood they have over at Windsor Plywood. I promise you will not be disappointed. If you're looking and you want to if you want to take a sneak peek of what they got, head on to Instagram or their Facebook page, do a little creep in, and see what they got there, because they got some stunning pieces of wood. Anyways, whether you're talking about mantles, decks, windows, doors, or sheds, stop into Windsor Plywood or give them a call, 780-875-9663. Mortgage broker Jill Fisher, her name says it all. She proudly serves the areas of Lloydminster, Bonnyville, Cold Lake, and Vermilion, and she's looking forward to working with you for all your mortgage needs. I know personally when it comes to mortgages, the numbers, the percentages, everything, just listen to me talk about it, you're like, ugh. Well, that's exactly how I feel about the entire process. And if you get somebody like Mrs. Jill Fisher to hop on board, she can make it nice, easy, and streamlined for you, and can figure out pretty much whether you need to renew or what you can get for a rate, etc. I don't think there's been ever a better time to get rates for your house. Give her a call, 780-872-2914, or stop into jfisher.ca, and she can give you all those lovely details and make your life a little less stressful. Clay Smiley and the team over at Prophet River, update on their new building. Concrete is poured, interior walls and offices are being framed, and the front showroom is being painted. They're moving into the old Buckle, and I tell you what, I drive by it often and live right behind the place, and it is busy. There's people going in left, right, and center. And I'm just excited to see what the new place is going to look like. They specialize in importing firearms from the United States of America, and they pride themselves on making it as easy for their customers as possible. They do all the paperwork, make sure it gets to you, yada, yada, yada. And I really mean that, because you're like, honestly, I just want to buy the gun and have it show up. Well, go to profitriver.com, and you'll find out just how easy it is, all right? They are the major retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories, serving all of Canada. Trophy Gallery. Downtown Lloydminster is Canada's supplier for glass and crystal awards. They got sports memorabilia. They got medals. They got it all. So with all the sports organizations firing up, and hopefully we get to, I've been seeing some videos of kids hockey and such. If you're looking for awards towards, as we move into the season, that type of thing, Clint's your man. He's got it all down there. I always talk about the travel mugs he did up for the podcast. They looked sharp. Like they were, oh man, still use it. Everyone I've given out, they're like, man, this is nice. Wow, that's Trophy Gallery's work. That is Clint. And he does, if you hop on his website, trophygallery.ca, you can see all the different products he has, all the shapes, sizes, all the different price ranges. Stop into his store. You can check out some of the signed memorabilia. I always point out when we had the Sidney Crosby signed jersey that we raised a little bit of money for the men's shelter. That came through Trophy Gallery, all right? So take a look at their website, trophygallery.ca. Finally, Jen Gilbert and the team for over 45 years, since 1976, the dedicated realtors of Coldwell Banker Cityside Realty have served Lloydminster and the surrounding area. Star Power is what they provide their clients with, 7-day-a-week access, because they know big life decisions do not happen during office hours. Coldwell Banker Cityside Realty, for everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 780-875-3343. Read and write. If you're looking for outdoor signage, go take a look at the SNP billboard across from the airport, or if you're looking for some interior wall quotes, I got them to do one up for me on my wall. It looks sharp. Or even the SNP logo behind my head on all the videos. That's all done by Read and Write. Gartner Management is a Lloydminster-based company specializing in all types of rental properties to help meet your needs. Whether you're looking for a small office or 6,000 square foot commercial space, give Wade Gartner a call today, 780-808-5025. And if you're heading into any of these businesses, make sure you let them know you heard one from the podcast, right? Now let's get on to that T-Bar 1 tale of the tape. He's the chief of staff at the Lloydminster Hospital, practicing physician Prof Med Clinic. I'm talking about Dr. Kevin Govender. So buckle up. Here we go.
This is Kevin Govender. Welcome to the Sean Newman podcast.
Welcome to the Sean Newman podcast. Today I am joined by Dr. Kevin Govender. So first off, sir, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
You're a busy man, and I appreciate, with all my guests, giving me some of your time. I hear a little birdie told me that you're going to be running in December. You're deciding to cause yourself a little bit of pain, are you?
Yeah, I think I am. I'm gonna give it a shot. See how it goes.
I've
never been a runner, but I've been.
So why not?
But I don't know.
Why not start in December of all months? And I should give the listeners, they're going, what is Sean talking about? We do the Christmas live stream for the Health Foundation, which raises money for the hospital and a bunch of different projects around Lloydminster. Last year we did it, and we had Mikey Dubs run, a ridiculous amount, Kevin. What was it, 124 kilometers in 12 hours on a treadmill?
Yeah.
And so this year, I don't know the full extent, and I can't break the beans on what it is because they haven't even announced it. But they got a new idea coming up that's going to pit some different residents or get them on the same side, who knows, running. And I found out you're one of them. And I was laughing when I asked. Well, the first thing I asked is does he run? And he's like, well, no. I'm like, so he doesn't run, and he's going to try and run in the middle of winter, in the dark for 12, I don't know the full extent of it. Obviously, it ain't the same thing as Mikey Dubs, but I commend you for doing that. You got a little bit of an adventure in your side, or on your side, I take it.
Yeah, adventure in my future.
Well, I look forward to that. Now, of course, that's not why I got you on to talk about, maybe, who knows, maybe in the future we'll get you back on to talk about that too. With all that's been going on over the last year and a half, closing in on 2 years, to be honest, there's been tons of information, good, bad, and different, just tons. I was laughing this morning. As soon as my phone went off, woke up, my phone started going off with different articles, different things, and sometimes you just got to put that thing away. But before we get into all of that, I was hoping you could give the audience, there's lots of people certainly in Lloyd who know who you are, Doctor, but maybe, Kevin, could you give a little of your backstory, and we'll start there so people can get a feel for who you are and certainly some of your credentials.
So I'm a family physician in Lloyd. Moved to Lloyd in 2006. So we 15 years in Lloydminster. Moved here with my wife Kabashni and our then almost 3-year-old son Keegan, and we've had 2 other kids since then. Studied, so there's Danae and Cade. Studied at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, and moved to Canada soon after. Worked a few years in South Africa, and then moved to Lloydminster, and been here since. I am an avid sports fan. I'm still playing sport, whenever we can, I guess. There was not much in terms of sporting activity over the last couple of years, so decided to take up a bit of road biking. So bought myself a road bike and started riding a little bit. And now apparently I'm going to become a runner.
Maybe you'll, for the people who can't or are listening, they won't be able to see this, but I guess next year,
there we go.
We'll get you on that team. I've got a Bike for Breakfast T-shirt on for all the listeners. Now, the reason I was bringing you on, Kevin, is I've been doing, there's a big push right now, right? The pandemic of the unvaccinated. You're a very credible person from sitting here in our own town. And I thought first, I always think fear paralyzes people. So when I told people you were coming on, man, the questions go across the board. So I thought maybe first we could talk about what you're actually seeing here in Lloydminster, try and bring it to a level that people can understand and maybe understand what's exactly going on.
Absolutely. So this pandemic hit Lloydminster probably in March of 2020. That's when we saw our first patient. I was at the emergency room, hanging out, just trying to give some support to the team. And our first patient, COVID-19 patient, was seen at the hospital. And of course, from then it's there's been a kind of a steady increase in the numbers, and then you kind of it tapers off, and then there's a steady increase and tapers off. We've had first phase, second phase, third phase, and now we kind of in the fourth phase or fourth wave of the pandemic, driven by variants. Now we know that variants are going to happen. We know that this virus is going to mutate, which is normal, natural progression of any viral type of infection. And typically as the virus mutates and we get these variants, they typically become stronger, more resistant, more infectious, something that we call more virulent. And this is what we are seeing. We thought we had a bit of a lull, probably early part of the summer. And then we have the Delta variant, which is now the predominant variant in the country and of course in Lloydminster. Delta variant is a lot more infectious, causing people to become a lot sicker. We are seeing more deaths, more significant illness, intubation, ventilations, patients needing to be on antibiotics, significantly more than we did in the other phases of the pandemic. So current status at the Lloydminster Hospital is we haven't seen as many admissions in the last couple of weeks. We've seen more in the last couple of weeks than we have seen at any time during the pandemic. So that's very concerning. And normally these things kind of, according to projections, will follow a 6 to 8 week course, right? And depending on the interventions that we put in the interim, we'll either get significantly worse or significantly better. So I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm trying to do as much as I can with all our colleagues, our medical colleagues, to try and stave off worst case scenario. As with anything, if something is looking like it's going to go bad, you kind of try and put in interventions to try and mitigate against that, right?
Yeah, so I'm curious because there's such a spotlight on this and on everything about this. If you go back over your 15 years in Lloyd, is there anything that compares to this? Like when flu season comes around, was flu, I don't know. Like before there wasn't eyes on that are on everything about this right now. So I'm just curious.
We've never seen anything the likes of this, right? We've seen, when was it? 2009 was the H1N1 swine flu pandemic that was supposed to be the next worst thing. We washed our hands, we coughed into our sleeves, we used hand sanitizer, we stayed at home when we were sick, and it was probably the mildest influenza season with regards to sickness and death that we'd seen in years, right? With this pandemic, even though we put in all of those measures and masking, we still see significant illness.
There's been a ton of talk around the masks. Lots of people, they don't work, they do work. You go down that rabbit hole of videos from professionals on both sides of that. And on this discussion, there's very, very quickly, or maybe slowly, I don't even know, there's quickly become two sides of an argument on everything. Masks being one of them. Masks don't work, they do work.
Okay.
No, I guess I'm curious what you've seen from it, right? Like
Yeah. So, I think, there's lots of studies out there, Sean, and I'll give you a story, and then I'll answer your question.
Sure.
The story is very apt because I think it kind of lends itself to what you're reading on the internet. So I have a nephew that lives with us, and my son Keegan, who's 17. I mean, when they were a lot younger, they were drinking lots of Coca-Cola. So my wife said to them, "You guys should not be drinking Coca-Cola." They were sneaking Coca-Cola into their rooms and stuff like that. There were cans of Coca-Cola everywhere. So my wife said to them, "Listen, guys, Coca-Cola is going to stunt your growth." And they said, "No ways." So she went on the internet. She found an article, a medical article, that actually showed or proved the point that she was going to make. Coca-Cola causes retardation of your growth. And she printed it out and gave it to these boys. And of course, the boys have significantly reduced their intake
Consumption
of Coca-Cola, right? So you can get anything. Now, was that peer-reviewed article? Probably not. Could you reproduce the study? Probably not. But it was a study that's on the internet. It's there. It's fantastic. Yeah, she proved her point, and it was great, right? And I was fully supportive. So our experience with masking, back in April of 2020, we had an outbreak at the Lloydminster Hospital. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
we
certainly.
had a COVID-19 outbreak. There were over 100 staff members that had to self-isolate and or were sick with COVID as a result of that outbreak. And that was just before the masking policy. So hospital masking policy was introduced in across Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So we were essentially caught with our pants down, so to speak, right? Because there was no masking policy in place at the hospital. And as a result, we lost 109 staff members for at least 2 weeks at a time, right? And that went on for a few weeks. And you can imagine what the fallout of that, losing 375 staff members, right? So more than a quarter of our workforce at some stage was down, self-isolating for a period of 2 weeks. So since then, we've hardly had anything, because since then we've had a masking policy that's been in place. Outbreaks have been almost non-existent. So does it work? As I said, you can show me whatever data you want. Our personal experience at the hospital, Lloyd Hospital, has been that it works.
Yeah, no, that's a hell of a story. I mean, who can argue
Which
with
one,
that?
the Coke
Kevin?
story or the
Both? Well, hell, I might print off the one for the kids, right? I mean, it's why getting doctors on is so important, Kevin, right? Like, if I sit and read too many articles either way, your brain can explode, right? You're right in the middle of our community. Lots of people trust exactly what you're talking about. And so to have you come on after I've had several different doctors that have spurred on a lot of thoughts, right? Yeah. It doesn't help when politicians, I know they're trying to do what is right, and maybe you agree with everything they're saying. So I guess that brings the vaccination thing. I mean, are you seeing the pandemic of the unvaccinated right now? Are you seeing any vaccinated? Does it matter? Does, what does running for everybody to get, that's too many questions. Let's go back. No. What are you seeing right now?
So, there's no doubt. I mean, the evidence shows that vaccination prevents serious infection and death. So vaccination with the COVID-19 vaccine is not going to prevent you from getting COVID, but it prevents you from becoming very, very sick. So, we've seen patients that are really old and patients that you think, okay, this patient has got COVID and for sure is not going to be with us in the next week or two, survive, right? And do well. And then you see, younger patients that do really, really poorly, are intubated and ventilated because they are unvaccinated. So do vaccines work? Vaccines work. I think they prevent in serious infection, they prevent death. and that's the big thing, to stay alive. I think that's the most important thing. I'm sure most people will agree with that. But there's a lot of controversy with the vaccines, and you've heard, and I'm sure many people have said, and I've heard it many times, this is an unproven science. It's they've rushed the production of the vaccine. It's taken within 1 year, and normal traditional vaccines take 10 years to develop, and all of that, and of course it leads to confusion. It leads to fear, right? And then fear leads to people not acting on things that they need to act on, and of course fear, as you know, leads to irrational thought. So that's what I'm seeing. Do you want me to speak to a little bit on the vaccine and the history of the vaccine, stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. I one of the things the one side always talks about VAERS, and I'd mentioned this when we were texting back and forth, and I can look at the numbers and I can go, oh, okay, right? Like, it's saying that vaccines do a lot of harm.
Yes.
But you don't hear, well, I shouldn't say you don't hear it. You hear a lot of doctors talk about that. You also hear a lot of doctors say that it's a lot of horse rubbish. Well, I think what happens then is most people are like, well, which is it, right? Like, is it rubbish, or is there, right? Like, I don't know what to make of that.
No, and fair enough. Look, and I think it's, then again, it's important. So here again, it's important to be able to know what is reliable in terms of the information that you're getting, and that's the biggest thing. Is something reliable. So if you've got somebody who wants to push an agenda and kind of floods the VAERS with a particular adverse effect, the numbers are going to it's a numbers game, right? So I would rely on Governor Canada statistics from reputable institutions. And I mean, VAERS, anybody, it's self-reporting. So it's a self-reporting website. So anybody can report any adverse effects. Can those adverse effects be verified? Not always, right? But when you go to the Governor Canada website, I quoted for my Lloydminster now a week ago, last week, 52 million doses of vaccine given, 3,328 serious adverse effects. So that will include your myocarditis, your pericarditis, your DVTs, and so on, right? Allergic anaphylaxis. There were 3,328. That was out of 52 million doses, which is 0.007%, which is exceedingly low if you have to think about it. A colonoscopy, for example, the risk of a perforation if you're having a colonoscopy is 1 in 1,000. Your risk of having a clot if you get COVID is 1 in 100. The risk of you getting a clot if you are admitted with COVID is 1 in 20, right? And 20% of those patients are probably going to die because of the clot. So yes, there are adverse effects, absolutely. I've had several patients with adverse effects from COVID-19 vaccination. That's a reality. With any medical treatment, you are going to get adverse events. Absolutely. Whether it's surgical, whether it's a medical treatment, you are going to have adverse effects, and that's the risk. And if you go for surgery, Sean, you're going to you sign an indemnity form or a consent for surgery, right? You're going to have your appendix out. They're going to say, okay, these are the risks of the procedure. This is what the benefits are, and it's a risk benefit, right? You sign, you say, okay, fine, I indemnify the surgeon and the hospital from any, I understand the procedure. It's called informed consent. And you sign it and you say, okay, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk. And that's what it's, unfortunately, that's what it is about. No treatment is 100% safe.
I'm curious then, do you think the push on getting everyone vaccinated is the right, because I mean, obviously it's a small risk, very, very small, but there still is risk. And
Yes.
for every patient, the 300-pound man, the guy, me, the 12-year-old kid, the pregnant woman, the healthy woman, the unhealthy woman, all these different, every person has a different genetic makeup, so to speak, right? On where they're at in life and everything else. The push rate now, I think the last I saw on Alberta, and I could be wrong a little bit on my numbers, but I want to say 70% is where they're at vaccination, double both doses, and 78 point something percent is got one dose. So they're almost 80%. Like, if we get to 100%, does this go away?
Yes.
100%, this entire thing goes away.
If you vaccinate, if you think about it, if you've got, look at polio, for example. We've almost eradicated polio. Is this going to go away completely? It's not going to go away completely, but I mean, it's going to be such a small circulating percentage that it's not going to cause any pandemics, or it's not going to cause any epidemics. So it's not going to cause any significant disease in a particular area. It may cause small amounts of disease, but it's not going to be a pandemic. So is it going to go away? To all intents and purposes, yes. We've almost eradicated polio, and if you talk to people around the time of the polio vaccine, when the polio vaccine was introduced, people said, "I will never take this. Don't take this." And now we don't even think about it. You get polio vaccine all the time.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, when it comes to polio, people just line up and away they go, right? Like I would agree with that.
They didn't.
In the beginning, they didn't.
They didn't. No, they didn't. Don't speak to somebody who's like 70 plus years old, right? And they'll tell you there was a lot of resistance. There was.
What do you make of Israel and all the data coming in from different parts of the world? I get told this, I mean,
Yes,
all the time, right? Variants breaking through, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So when the COVID vaccine was developed, it was developed using the genetic material, or the capsid protein of the wild type Wuhan wild type virus, right? And then it's mutated several times. So is it as effective against the Delta variant as it would be against the wild type? No, but is it effective? It still is effective, but it's not as effective. So are you going to see breakthrough infection? You are going to see breakthrough infection. And then you must also realize, as you said, not everybody's made the same, right? Different genetic makeup, different comorbidities. So you are going to see breakthrough infection. Absolutely you are. We are seeing, locally, probably 20 to 30% of patients that are becoming infected with COVID-19 are either partially or fully vaccinated. So that's what we are seeing. 70 to 80% are unvaccinated, yes, but we are going to see breakthrough infections. That's normal. So as the virus mutates, the effectiveness of the vaccine is going to be less and less effective. That's the reality.
If we get to 100%, is that even feasible? Before a new variant comes through and the vaccine we currently have doesn't work on it.
And that's the problem. That is the issue that we have is, are we going to do enough to prevent another variant from showing up? And that's my fear. From day one, as soon as I heard about this, one of the first thoughts that I had was mutation. So it was almost a race between, getting. So it was a race to try and get as many people vaccinated before we started seeing variants that were now resistant to vaccination. That's the problem, and that's my biggest fear, Sean. That is my biggest fear, and that is something that I am, as I said, from day one was worried about, and now even though we have the vaccine, I'm still concerned about it. because, a large percentage of the population is still not vaccinated. Of course, more are vaccinated than are unvaccinated. But, if you've got a large enough population in which that virus is going to circulate, mutations are going to happen, and mutations are going to constantly happen, and we can get, a more virulent, a more dangerous kind of iteration of the virus, right? So you're going to get, a stronger, more infective, virus that causes more illness, more death, potentially. So that's my biggest concern, and that's why, I support vaccination. And at the end of the day, it's a risk benefit, and that's what we're saying. It's like anything, like you're going to have your appendix out, risk benefit. You take a Tylenol, risk benefit, right? You take your high blood pressure medication, risk benefit. Everything in medicine, or most things in medicine, is a risk benefit. But it's kind of measuring or weighing the risk with the benefit, right, for yourself. And with COVID, it's been, measuring the risk for yourself, but also the risk and benefit for the community as a whole. So it becomes a bigger responsibility on the individual. And it's not just an individual thing. It becomes more, what do I do and how do I contribute to the society as a whole? And that's where I am with my messaging right now. It's it's an individual decision that has a major impact on the community that you live in. Do we want to keep restaurants open? I love to go to my favorite restaurants, right? I want to go and do whatever I want to. I want to play sport again. And my opinion is that, how do we get there? If we get there with vaccination. We get there with 80+% of the population vaccinated, and we can get there, and we should get there. So that's where I am. I think we need to get to that point so that we can all enjoy the freedoms that we've enjoyed before. This is no way of living, Sean. Wearing a mask the whole time, hand sanitizing. My hands are, dry as dry can be. It's crazy. But, that's a small, I guess it's a small price to pay for keeping people safe.
Can I got a thing rolling in my head right now. So
I could see it.
So your biggest fear is new variants coming. So the push on getting, and why you believe everyone should be vaccinated, including kids who have had arguably no repercussions of COVID, isn't because of what COVID's doing now, but what COVID could turn into in the future.
Well, at the moment, the Delta variant is pretty nasty. So if this is nasty, what's next? I work at the hospital, and I'm concerned for our staff, physicians, nurses, support staff. Everybody's getting burnt out. This is absolutely, it's dragging on for a year and a half plus. So it's tough. Yeah. Am I concerned about what's happening now? Absolutely. The Delta variant is serious. It is virulent. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not sure what's coming next. I don't think anybody is. But I think vaccination, if we can get enough people vaccinated, then it significantly reduces the risk of this virus being present and mutating further.
I'd read in a paper, you may chuckle at this, but I'd read a paper from a doctor out of Germany who talked about the vaccines spurring on mutation. Do you laugh at that, or do you think there's some concern there?
No, and no. So that, if you think about it, if that's always the potential, because the thing is, the vaccine was created with the wild type Wuhan strain. So now you've got several mutations later, and you've got a vaccine, you've created antibodies to the wild type virus, and now you've got 4 generations later. So could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen, Sean. I'm not a virologist, right, by any means, but could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen. And that makes it even scarier, doesn't it? So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be vaccinated. It means that we need to get vaccinated sooner and in high enough numbers so we prevent that from happening.
You wonder if that's even possible, honestly, with the world as interconnected as we are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just going down that thought process, right, of
Yes.
where we got to, right? Nobody's Thanos. I don't know if you're a Marvel guy.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Thanos snaps his fingers, 50% gone, right? Well,
I have kids, so I don't have a choice.
Well, I just think, if you had the magical gauntlet, right? Snap your fingers, the world vaccinated, gone, done, we're good. But you look at the world, what you're talking about is probably impossible.
Yes. I think it's I think we can get to 80%.
Well, we're pretty much there, are we not? I could pull up the Alberta website again.
Yeah, Alberta is pretty close. Lloydminster.
I should apologize because you are Saskatchewan. We sit on the border city, and I live in Alberta, and we're so close. It's what you listen to both reports and you go with it.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Okay, so here's the numbers from Alberta. Fully vaccinated, 70.9%. 12 plus population who've received at least one dose, 78.9%.
Okay.
So very close to that
Close to
80%.
Yeah.
But I go back to, like, if you look at the world and look at all the different things that's going on, the chances of getting the entire world to that is, I don't want to say impossible, because everybody loves a challenge, right? Like, everybody loves. But look at the States. I mean, that's our closest neighboring border, and there they sit. I mean, I hear an awful lot. I've had Peter McCullough on multiple times from Texas, and he talks an awful lot about early treatment. Do you subscribe then to the early treatment theory or no? Right now, and I bring it up because it's behind the scenes. That is the number one conversation going on anywhere right now, is early treatment. What do you do when you're sitting at home and you get COVID? Can you do things, etc.? Even if you're vaccinated, right?
But that's what we're doing. So my colleagues and I, we engage in early treatment. So prevention of your COVID pneumonia, putting patients on antibiotics, putting patients on advising multivitamins and all of that, alternate kind of treatments. Absolutely. I speak to my COVID positive patients probably every couple of days. So I know exactly who they are. I phone them up on a regular basis, keep track and see how they're doing. I had a patient today who was, husband texted me yesterday, this is how the patient is doing. And he said, please call me in the morning and we'll have a chat. So this morning, 8:45, I gave him a call. Patient wasn't doing well, I requested that he take her to the hospital. Right. So I think we keep a close eye on our patients. With the Delta variant, I haven't prescribed as many antibiotics and steroids as I have throughout the pandemic. So early treatment, yes. Multivitamins, yes. All of those interventions, absolutely.
What's your thoughts on ivermectin?
So there are some studies that show that ivermectin works. There is no doubt about it. But by and large, I think the largest scale studies haven't proved its effectiveness. And it's a cheap drug, right? It's an available drug, and we haven't used it at the hospital, right? we've used other medications. We've in the initial period of COVID, we used hydroxychloroquine, Plaquenil, right? But it's not part of the treatment regimen. So yeah, it's all. There seem to be some studies initially that showed very good response to the treatment with ivermectin, and then when the larger studies came out, we didn't really see that.
Don't you find it odd that ivermectin's been singled out across, like when Trump says hydroxychloroquine, I mean, the entire world pays attention to a president saying it, right? So
Yes.
that one,
Yeah,
you can
right.
understand its fanfare.
Absolutely.
Ivermectin's an interesting one.
Yes.
Just because, well, the attack it's had, and I am going to call it attack because it's been wild to watch.
Yeah.
The things that have been written and said and everything else. People talk about, I've had different doctors tell me they can't prescribe it or they're not allowed to prescribe it. I don't know if that's true. They've then on like CNN, they've said some wildly absurd things, which are partial truths. I mean, it is used in the farming industry by all means, but we both can agree that it's also a human drug, and that's kind of odd for a giant media corporation to say.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about the pharmaceutical industry to know what is going on. Were there some issues with that whole process that I questioned? Absolutely. The non-availability of ivermectin all of a sudden, and these are the kind of things that fuel conspiracies. Absolutely, it kind of creates doubt in people's minds, and that's part of the problem. Let's be honest with people. Just be straight up and honest with them. And I think, people, that's what people want. People don't want, this kind of cloak and dagger stuff that goes on. And I mean, and a lot of what's gone on with COVID has been cloak and dagger. And it kind of, unfortunately, fuels the kind of conversations that are leaning towards conspiracy theories. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. Right,
Well,
which is unfortunate, but that's the reality.
I agree with you on that point, because in our country, we've watched the goalposts. They even talk about it now as the goalposts, right? Constantly change, and they never tell you what's coming next. Even though I have to assume a lot of the time they must know. They've never been. You talk about trust. I read a very interesting article from Denmark, and the guy saying why they've reached vaccination. 80, I think they're at 86%.
Yeah.
Why they got there so fast. And he said exactly what you just said. He said they were upfront and open since the very beginning that people were going to die. 1, 2, that this wasn't going away in 2 weeks. Oh, wait, we said 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and everybody loves to point out that it has not been 2 weeks. I'm sure doctors must have laughed when they heard that. Yeah. They talked about vaccines. They said that they were very open, that there was going to be people that got hurt from it. That's not a natural, that is side effects of vaccines, right?
Yes.
The history of vaccines, that does happen. They did say there was going to be booster shots. And I was like, wow, there's something I would have never thought a country would say to its people. Yes. And they were very open. And he said, with being open, they gained the trust of a lot of people. And what's happened here, I say this all the time, is medical and politics have become this like really weird animal now. I don't go to my politician for medical advice. People may find that funny, but I don't. And yet that's where we're running right now to find out where we're going. And you go the cloak and dagger, that's what it has been now for about a year. Yeah. I mean, geez, it was only a month ago, Kevin, that Alberta announced we were sick, everything was done. It was endemic. Everything's done. I came back from the States and heard that, and I was like, holy man, where did I go? Like, I just warped through time or something? Like, what happened? Like, what? I don't understand. When we talk about confusion and all these different things, that's our leadership doing that. That's what's been happening here for the last year. That's why there's so much doubt everywhere on everything, is because of all this.
Yeah. Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes.
I realize I put you in a tough spot because you probably
You did, and and I think what you're saying is absolutely true, and I think I'll stick to my statement, and I think more could have been done to be more upfront with our population, and I think one of the things that personally I think has been done across the country, several countries, is they have insulted the intelligence of the populace, right? They've insulted the intelligence of their citizens. Tell them like it is. This is the facts. Lay it out. How many numbers do we have? How many people are sick? How many in hospital? Tell us what's going to happen. You have the data. Share the modeling with us, because everybody does modeling, right? They know exactly how many, what the projections are. Share it with your population. Have discussion. In my opinion, I think you have credible medical leaders as your forefront spokespeople, and that's the one thing that I think probably may have been done a little better, is the information sharing with the public, and I think it's a trust issue. That's what it is. It's not about medical information, it's about trust. And unfortunately, when people don't have information, they start looking for information. And once you start looking for information, then you start looking and finding things that may not be the most reliable source of information. And then once you go down a rabbit hole, you're lost, because how the internet works, Sean, right? If you kind of search up a particular thing, you'll be getting bombarded in your search engines after that with whatever rabbit hole you went down. And once you go down, it's a slippery slope and you're gone, right? That's the way it is.
I agree with that. Once again, I was like, any rabbit hole you go down is very dangerous, and it's harder and harder to get out of it once you're down it.
Absolutely.
I am curious, for all the knocks of the internet, there is some amazing benefits to it. Like, one, I mean, we can learn things that are happening in different places.
Absolutely.
You can talk with experts from all over the world.
Yeah.
I've asked multiple doctors this, and I'm wondering if you can, maybe you have an answer, maybe you don't, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a team, a group that is constantly working with other teams across the world on what they're seeing and what they're doing and what they're finding? Is that something that's going on? Do you know of?
I think there's through the pandemic, there's been a lot of collaboration between countries like we've never seen before. Just because it's a global pandemic, right? So there are lots of working groups that are working together closely across the world and constantly updating the information that we have. So yes, there are these organizations that are collaborating, and I think scientists are collaborating like everybody else. We rely on various sources for our information, and we kind of tend to gravitate towards the journals that are more reliable, and that's pretty much where we get our information. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I've been talking with different people from across not only Canada and the States, just about, like what they're seeing, what they're doing, et cetera, right? Early treatment is one that I find fascinating, because it doesn't say, I had a listener point this out to me, and I agree that, it's like, why do you have to be pro one or pro the other, right? Why do you have to be pro-vax or against vax? Why can't it just be pro-vax, like vaccination's good? And on top of that, we could be doing things like early treatment, that if you get the first symptoms of COVID and have a positive test and you're sitting at home, you're doing this. And that's been corroborated with people from all over the world. I have no idea. I'm just spitballing here.
We need to do everything. we can to eradicate this virus from our midst, right? Whatever it takes, Sean, whatever it takes, we need to get this scourge out. The virus is bad, right? I started taking multivitamins probably in April last year. I'd never taken multivitamins. I just take the odd multivitamin, take a couple of vitamin D here and there, sporadically. Faithfully personally started taking multivitamins probably for over the last year and a bit. Every day, make sure, take my D, I take my multivitamins, I take zinc, the odd echinacea, right? So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing this every day for the last year and a bit consistently. Is that part of the approach to COVID? Absolutely. Do I encourage that? Absolutely. And you're right. That's all. It's all part of it. Early treatment, yes. So pre-treatment, early treatment, vaccination, proper drugs when you are sick or admitted. All of that stuff. All of it is very, very important, right? We'll be learning more about post-treatment, as we kind of study the long-term effects of COVID infection. So do I support all of that stuff? Absolutely, and I think most of my colleagues do.
Is there an early treatment protocol? Like I once again go to like the FLACC. They have like, if you get, well, and actually I've read reports on Mexico too that I thought were really fascinating. That if you get the early symptoms, right? You come in, you test positive, you go home. Is there something that people can just go and like, I don't know, ivermectin has been talked about so much that always gets, if you got ivermectin, go home, start taking it, whatever, right? Everybody, and the thing is no matter how much censorship goes on the word ivermectin, it's funny that if it wasn't working, like I never hear anyone say the word hydroxychloroquine. I mean, once in a while, and you go, oh, maybe there's something there. I have no idea. I just associate it with Trump. But the interesting thing about ivermectin is it has made its way through everything all across the world. Like everybody, Japan just came out and talked about it. And you got Mexico who started using it very early on, has a whole bunch there. Yeah. In Canada, is there something, because people, I guess right now people are terrified, right? Fear is a funny thing. Yeah. And I go, well, if we just take a step back, there's a ton of people are vaccinated. Well, now they're fearful because they realize, holy crap, I can still get it. I thought I wasn't going to get it, but I can still get it, which is now we don't even, we got 80%. You think everybody happy-go-lucky, let's go live life. That is not what's happening. And I go, if there's ways to help maybe dampen or take away some of the fear, right? Like, listen, we're working on this. Like, is there anything that they can just go, I mean, other than multivitamins, that's even before you get that, right? Like the FLCC talks about if you get COVID symptoms and sent home, here's the protocol. Start doing all these things at once. Do we have anything like that?
There's no protocol that we have, and one of the things that we do is we encourage patients to follow up with the family physician as soon as possible, just to kind of monitor and see. It is a viral infection. There is potential that you can become secondarily infected with the bacterium. So antibiotics, steroids to kind of avert the cytokine storm that you may have read about. So those are the types of treatments that we would offer, and following up your patients on a regular basis, I think is appropriate, and I think appropriately advise them when they need to go to the hospital for chest X-ray, blood work, and so on, right? So that's what many of us have been doing is following up closely with our family, with our patients, and not just saying, go home, this is a viral infection, and good luck, right? Not many of us have done that, because I think most of us care for our patients, and we genuinely care, and we want to see that they do well, and the only way to kind of to know how they're doing is to give them a call, try and assess them over the phone as best you can. And if at a point you think, you know what, they're not doing as well as we think they should be doing at this point in the course of their illness, then perhaps going to the hospital is for an kind of a physical examination and some vital signs, oxygen saturations, temperature, X-ray, blood work, and so on is appropriate.
I think one of the fallouts of all this that has been very unfortunate, when we talk about trust and how people talk about doctors and nurses and the medical profession right now is really, and actually my wife's a teacher and I've started to hear it on teachers now too. And I think that's a very misappropriate thing to do. I don't think, if I take a step back, and I think if a lot of people took a step back and thought, are doctors doing everything they can? Yeah, I would think so. Do teachers want our kids to not learn and be indoctrinated and blah, blah, blah? You hear all these different things. You're like, I don't think so, right? I think as a population, we need to take a step back there.
Yeah, I think most people, honestly, most people, are decent human beings and kind of see the work that teachers are doing and want to do. My dad's a teacher, was a teacher. He's retired now. He's not teaching anymore. He's 76 years old. He probably one of the. I'm not sure why I didn't become a teacher, because he almost inspired me to become a teacher. Teachers are amazing human beings, and the love that they have for their for their students is probably it never ends. Personally, I when I go back to South Africa, I go and seek out my teachers because of that bond and the effect that they've had on shaping me as a human being. So if people can say something nasty about teachers, they've got big problems. If people can say nasty things about physicians and nurses who risk their lives every day, especially now in this pandemic, to save the life of a stranger, it's a sad thing. I go home, you get coughed on by COVID patients and you kind of hope that you don't have COVID. I get home, strip down in the garage, tiptoe up to the bathroom, to the shower, have a shower, and then I can, be in circulation with my family. So this is what we go through on a daily basis. Every one of us, every nurse, every doctor, we are in constant fear of potentially contracting COVID. And for somebody to come out and be critical of that process is disappointing and callous. That's what it is. Callous, that's the word. And if that person is brave enough, they should come and say it to my face. Come and say it to my face. Don't put it on social media. Come and say it to my face. You know where you find me. I'm everywhere in Lloyd, Sean. Come and say it to my face. If you're man enough or woman enough, come and say it to my face, and I'll tell you where to get off. Because you know what, I'm sick of it. Don't be a coward. Say it to my face. You know where I live. Come.
That's the governor I know and love.
No, look, let's be fair. Look, Sean, you have to have the courage of your convictions, right? If you got something negative to say to me, say it to my face. Don't put it on social media, because I can't, I'm not going to respond. No nurse, no doctor is going to respond on social media. If we do, we're going to get a long letter from our college man. And that's not fun, right? That's the reason why we don't, okay? Because it's unprofessional for us to respond to negative comments on social media. And it is. You say something bad about an RCMP officer, there's no way that this officer can respond on social media. Can't. We are professional people. We aren't meant to do that. But if you've got a problem with me, and my profession, speak to me in person. And look, part of my job, Sean, is to deal with complaints, and I prefer to see patients in person. If there's a complaint against any of the physicians or nurses or even myself, right, I prefer to see that person, that complainant in person. Talk to me. I want to see your face, and I need you to see my face, right? If I did something wrong, I need to own up to it, right? If I've done something wrong, I need to own up to it, but I need to own up to it face to face with you, right? And that's what I encourage in our, amongst our staff. There's always going to be complaints, right? That's the way it goes. But we need to be strong enough and fair enough to people to be able to face them face to face.
You bring up if you comment, you get a letter from the college. I've had a doctor on here say it, and I've had several different people reach out and say it about the censorship of you guys, that you're not allowed to say what you want to say. Not on social media, I don't think. I don't think that's what it was meant as. It was more as meant like, I look at, well, the case in Saskatchewan was Francis Christian, right? He was the guy who was let go for his thoughts on the vaccination rollout. Does that bother you? Are you seeing tons of that, or is that just standard practice that's always been there?
No, look, I mean, I don't think censorship per se is an issue, and I think if you are saying something that as a physician that makes sense and is following the dictates of evidence-based medicine, that's okay. If you are trying to unduly influence somebody with evidence that's not quite peer-reviewed, then it's a different scenario, right? Should you be censored? Perhaps you should be, because you are kind of engaging in a narrative that could potentially be harmful to people. So yeah, I think who determines that? I guess your regulatory bodies can determine whether what you are saying is appropriate or not. Should everybody have their opinion? Absolutely, everybody should have their opinion. But if your opinion is so out to left field that it's potentially causing more harm than good, then it's definitely a problem. Is it kind of not consistent with the greater good? Yes, then I think maybe that person needs somebody to have a chat with them.
Yeah, the Francis Christian though, like I don't think censorship is a good thing. I think the more open we are, the more trust people. Now, in saying all that, I guess in positions of power, it's different. And a guy getting censored, there's probably ways of both sides of that argument. But specifically with Francis Christian, Kevin, he was just saying that he didn't think the vaccine should be rolled out to kids. That's pretty much what he got let go for.
Yeah. So I don't know what I didn't read the whole kind of charge sheet, so to speak. What is my thoughts on kids getting the vaccine? I mean, I think it's a personal choice, risk benefit, right?
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for kids over 12 to get the vaccine where in a population group where it's been studied? Absolutely, right? Does everybody have a right to their opinion? I think everybody has the right to their opinion, but if you are in a position where you are saying, don't do this or do this, then it's a problem. So I can sit here and say that I have not told anybody to get the vaccine, right? And I think if you say to somebody, don't get the vaccine, I think it's bad. It's a bad thing, right? If you say to somebody, so my personal belief is give people information and make them decide, right? I haven't told anybody to get the vaccine or not get the vaccine, not even my own family, right? My wife asked me lots of questions. We kind of went through lots of data and so on, because I mean that's how her mind works. She needs a lot of information, and because she's before she makes any decision, she needs to have lots of information. Our 17-year-old, we asked him about getting the vaccine, and he said to me, I'm not going to get the vaccine because I'm 17, I'm fit, healthy, and exercise, and if I get COVID, I'll be okay. These macho 17-year-olds, how they are. If you've ever met one of those, you don't know what I'm talking about. So then he says to me, why did you get the vaccine? And I said, I've been, this was in April. And I said, by the time by this time, I said, I've been dealing with this virus for over a year. And, touch wood, because of protocols, safety, and maybe a little bit or a lot of luck, I haven't acquired this virus yet. When the vaccine became available, I took it. And the reason I took it is because I wanted to be one of the 80+% of people that got the vaccine, so that we could eradicate this virus from our midst, right? Because I said, this is no way of living, masking and, hand sanitizing and social distancing and all of that stuff. That's not for me. We need to get out of this pandemic as soon as possible. And I think the key to getting out of the pandemic was getting that 80+% vaccination. So I left it at that. And 3 days later, he comes to me and he says to me, okay, I thought about it. I'm going to get the vaccine because I want to make a contribution to our society, he says. So I said, okay, that's good. Our 13-year-old, I said, are you going to get the vaccine? And she said, I don't know, whatever you say. And I said, no, it's not whatever I say. It's what you want to do, because this is a personal choice. This is the information that I'm giving you, right? I think that it's safe. I think it's effective, but I will not make a choice for you. And you are the one who needs to make a choice for yourself, even at 13 years old. And she says, okay. She came back a couple of days later and she says, look, lots of my friends are getting the vaccine. I think I'm going to get it too. So I think it's important coming to censorship and of people. I think it's what you say. Do I support the vaccine? Yes, I support the vaccine. 100% I do. Should you as a person say, don't get the vaccine because it's bad for you? I don't think that any physician should say that. I think it's wrong for somebody to say that. I think you can give them the information and you can say, I think this is what I think about the vaccine, but I need you to make your choice. But if you say, don't get the vaccine, it's going to kill you, or don't get the vaccine because it's going to do this, and this, I think that's wrong.
Yeah, to make a blanket statement is what you're saying. Not
exactly. If you have an opinion, that's fine. But don't instruct somebody to do something, because that's not fair. And if you can go and speak to anybody that I've spoken to about the vaccine, and I've never said to a single person, I need you to go and get this vaccine. Not one. I mean, I haven't even done it with my family, right? So yeah, you provide information, and the patient needs to make a decision.
When it comes to kids, because I think, listen, as an adult, unless we're gonna start pinning people down, Kevin, and putting it in their arm and seeing what stories get written after that.
Yes,
adults are gonna make their choice one way or another. And right now, you're closing in on 80% has made their choice.
Yeah.
When it comes to kids, I think a lot of parents struggle with this. I know I certainly struggle with this, because I go, I mean, I don't have a 13-year-old. I got way younger kids than that where you can't, my oldest is 5. I'm not giving a 5-year-old the choice of
No.
whether he gets it or not. I'm not going to, he
Right.
wouldn't understand. Right.
Yes.
Do we fully understand the long-term effects of this thing?
No, we don't. No, we don't. Right? We don't. But then, saying that, do we fully understand the long-term effects of being infected with COVID-19? Right? So that's where I said, risk benefit.
Yeah.
So I struggled with this, Sean, because and the reason I struggled with it is not so much because of safety, because I think I genuinely believe that these vaccines are safe and effective. But what I struggled with was, why does my 13-year-old or why does my 17-year-old need to get a vaccine against COVID-19 so that we keep Uncle Bob safe? Uncle Bob is 75 years old, unvaccinated, hypertensive, diabetic, had a heart attack, quadruple bypass, and is still smoking. So if Uncle Bob gets COVID, he's going to die, unfortunately. So why does my 13-year-old and my 17-year-old need to get vaccinated to protect Uncle Bob? So that's the one thing I struggled with. And if you think about it, it kind of, it makes you think. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Why does my, and I get it, I understand it. And I think that's an appropriate question that I had for myself. And that's the reason why I kind of, I gave the information to the kids and said, look, I'm not going to make this choice for you. Particularly because I had that thought process in my mind where I was, do I need my kids to be part of that, 80-85% maybe? I don't know. To protect somebody who doesn't want to be vaccinated? I don't know. So that was the struggle for me, but and I, as I said, I deferred it to them and to think about it with the information that I'd, or my wife and I had shared with them.
That's a large question, right?
Yeah, it's a large question. It's a huge question. It is. And how much do we know about this vaccine? So the thing about the vaccine is that, as you may know, the development of mRNA technology was probably around the 1960s. And then they stabilized the mRNA molecule in the early 90s. They were going to use it for the SARS virus in the 2000s, early 2000s. And then it didn't pan out to be a global pandemic. And then they shelved the potential use of mRNA technology or vaccine technology. Then we had the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, a few years later. And they thought, okay, this is going to be a global pandemic. It wasn't. So they kind of shelved the idea to run with, or to produce a vaccine using mRNA technology. So this technology has been around for a while. I mean, you've got companies like BioNTech, this is what they do. And, you've got companies like Moderna, that's what they do. I mean, and that's the reason why Pfizer kind of, used the expertise of BioNTech. I mean, Pfizer is a huge company with their distribution and all of that, labs and so on, right? Factories. So I guess it was a good mix. Collaboration, call it what you will. So that said, I guess, where was I going with this? Yeah, so you have you have a vaccine that was developed over a very short period of time, seemingly, because just a year, right, from the time you had the vaccine that was the virus, and then the vaccine, and it kind of looked, okay, that in itself is a little concerning, because how can you develop something over a year?
How can you develop something that quick?
Vaccine takes 5 to 10 years to develop traditionally, right? And there's a couple of reasons. This was a global effort, so there's collaboration among scientists across the world. So that's the one thing which we've never seen before. We had technology that was kind of developed probably like 25 to 30 years before that was now available. They had to kind of sequence the capsid protein on the outside of the coronavirus. So once they were able to sequence that and break it down into its amino acid structure, then they were able to kind of create the mRNA template that was in the virus. So the mRNA goes into your ribosome and creates this capsid protein, and then that's what your body recognizes foreign and then creates the antibodies. So that was that was done, and then you still have to do clinical trials, Sean, right? And that is what takes a long time. So you got to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. So that also was accelerated because one of the reasons why clinical trials take so long usually is because there isn't enough burden of disease of a particular disease in the community. So they've got to find controls, and then they've got to find diseased individuals, right, to be able to do a control group or placebo group, and then a actual active product group, right? Now with COVID, I mean, there were millions and millions of cases of COVID all over the world. So clinical trials were not a huge deal because they could get, they had the burden of disease in our across the world essentially. So those were some of the factors why the vaccine development was so fast. Right. And I think, many people may or may not understand that. But yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I'm just a family physician, so I don't even understand most of it, to be fair, right? But broadly speaking, that's part of the reason why you have that kind of the speed of development.
Well, I think it's human ingenuity, right? Like you got the entire world working on a problem, you find a solution, and they have found it. I think some of the concerns is, I mean, yeah, you have lots of people to trial it on, but you don't have the time to see what all these injections will do long term. I mean, that's a big fear of people, and you've been very open front, right? Like you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you got all these people, no different for the vaccine, right? You got all these people to try the vaccine on. You got all these people you can try different protocols on, see what's working, right? Yeah. Because I mean, you're absolutely right. Millions of people across the entire world have been getting this. I find it interesting that the vaccine got world buy-in, but we haven't had world buy-in to, or what it feels like, to other ways of helping reduce things, or at least it doesn't feel like that. And that's just from the outside.
Yeah. So if you look at viruses as a group, we've had viruses forever, right? We've had bacteria forever, for as long as we can remember.
And we're going to moving into the future as well.
Yeah. So, you have bacteria, you have antibiotics, right? You have a bacterial pneumonia, you have antibiotic. You have like an abscess somewhere, antibiotic, right? Cut it open, antibiotics, right? For viruses, there aren't many antiviral treatments out there, right? If you look at the number of antiviral treatments out there compared to the number of antibiotic treatments out there aren't many. So have there been trials on various non-vaccine treatment options? Absolutely. and they continue to be these trials. They hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, some of the biologicals. We're actually using some of them at the hospital, approved to be used right now. So there are all these kind of treatment options that are being investigated. Absolutely, they are, and they'll do the trials, kind of work. Is it effective? Is it not? And somebody will say, "Oh yeah, this is fantastic." And then when they go and do a peer review, or try and reproduce the study, if the study is not reproducible, then it's not credible. So that's the problem. So over the years, we found that one of the most effective ways of dealing with a viral infection is vaccination, right? So that's what we've seen. So, that's various viruses we've seen that we effectively can use vaccine technology. So, we've had traditional vaccine technology, and as you may know, there are some companies that are working on developing non-genetic modes or so-called traditional vaccine technology. And there are dozens of companies working on dozens of vaccines that may not necessarily be mRNA based. This mRNA is it's safe and effective because it's genetic. Of course, that brings with it its own baggage, right? And I mean, as long as you can remember, anything genetic manipulation has always been looked upon not so favorably by the general population. So they are, they continue to develop various types of treatments, including the looking at other methodologies of treatment, and not just vaccine treatment. Because the thing is, yes, even in those that are vaccinated, you're going to have somebody who with breakthrough infection that will need alternative type of treatment. So the vaccine will prevent you from getting serious illness and death. But what happens when you do get the illness? It needs to be treated.
Yeah. Well, even on Canada's website, talking data.
Yes.
Even on Canada's website, since the rollout of the vaccinations, there's been 155 deaths of fully vaccinated people. I'm not saying that stat to scare anyone. I just
no,
you can't
absolutely.
I think for a lot of people, it was portrayed as the silver bullet, like bulletproof now, away we go. And
no, because you don't know that those 155 people, what comorbidities that they have, right? Are you fully vaccinated, and do you have severe heart disease or COPD? Are you fully vaccinated, and are you on a significant dose of immunosuppressant medication that's going to render the vaccination ineffective? So there's so many things. And are people going to die after being fully vaccinated? Yes, but I can argue, and the data will bear me out on this. There's a significantly higher number of people that are unvaccinated that are dying.
True, but if you go down that argument of the 155, what they had, then you can use that argument against what's happening right now, right? Like the average age of COVID cases that died is 80, and a lot of people stare at that and go, well, I mean, I'm not trying to say old people. That's what happens at the end of life. They point to all the comorbidities, that they got all these underlying health issues. And that's the argument on the other side too, for everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. And, so shall we let, my 85-year-old granny die?
No, absolutely not.
That's the thing. So is she collateral damage? I don't think so. So it becomes quite an emotive kind of conversation to have.
Sorry,
right?
Kevin, I wasn't trying to say that we shouldn't try and protect those people. I was saying, if you look at the 155 and go down, well, what else did they have wrong with them?
Yeah.
That's what the argument uses on all the people contracting COVID right now and that are passing away, is what do they have wrong with them? And they push to that they've got a whole wealth of health issues. And that's, and it's like, well, are we not supposed to protect those? No, like I come back to what you're saying about the vaccination. If I'm going to take a couple things out of this conversation, is that the idea is if we had 100% vaccination, you could, in theory, have this completely gone.
In theory, yeah.
The only issue with that is getting to 100% vaccination before a new variant comes through, which may be impossible because without Thanos's glove on, here we sit, right?
That's the scary part for me, Sean.
Yeah.
That is the, that's what troubles me, every day. I probably lose about maybe 30 minutes of sleep, maybe. I don't know. But I do lose some sleep over that every night. And that's the big concern for me is mutation. And yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate you giving me all this time. I want to slide into the Crude Master Final Five. As I said before, I appreciate all your time of sitting here and having an open discussion about it. I think one of the things in society that we really, really need is discussions like this. It's very, I think it's eye-opening to people to hear it, and certainly going to make me go home and think over some things. But when I mentioned you were coming on, I said this, there was a ridiculous amount of questions come in.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'll try and keep it short here, as long as I got you for a few more minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, the first Crude Master Final Five question, I got to ask mine, is always, if you were going to sit down with somebody and do what we're doing right now, who would you want? Like, who do you think would be worthwhile in having a conversation like this with?
You, Sean, absolutely.
You got nobody you'd want to pick their brain up?
Just you, Sean.
Wow,
Oh, so, all right. No.
Okay.
If I had to, I probably, if I had one person, dead or alive that I would want to sit down and have a conversation with, it would be Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
I've listened to him talk on different, like old videos.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating individual.
He is a fascinating individual. He, I think many of us, especially me, can learn a lot from somebody like that, for sure. After what he went through, and then, to forgive, and it was an amazing thing for him. That's one of the things I wish I could learn and take that level of forgiveness, and if that could rub off on me, that'll be fantastic. Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah,
I put him in the same realm as Gandhi. I
think so, absolutely. Yeah. I think Gandhi was probably like before my time. Mandela was somebody who was almost a contemporary, and I kind of saw him and his struggle and followed his life and works and teachings and so on very, very closely. So that'll be, so after you, Sean, Nelson Mandela.
Well, geez, that's pretty high company. All right, well, I'm going to put you back into the fire. Here's a couple questions that have come in from all the people who at least follow me and you here in Lloydminster. They were all local people who were asking these. They know exactly who you are. The first one deals directly with schools.
Yes.
Right now, they're having outbreaks, and what they're doing is if your child is unvaccinated, they're supposed to isolate at home. And so one of the moms had asked, why are we making perfectly healthy children isolate?
So I think so this is now, just to clarify, so you're isolating because you've been in contact with a close contact.
So if there's a close contact
with COVID-19,
And then they make the unvaccinated
Yes,
go home, and the vaccinated can come back to school. And
the
they're
vaccine
both
come back to school. And I mean, if that's the chances of you acquiring COVID-19 if you vaccinate is significantly lower. If you are unvaccinated, there's a significantly higher chance that you can acquire COVID-19. You can be asymptomatic for a few days, but when you're asymptomatic, you're still infectious. So you could still be spreading the disease in the unvaccinated state until and beyond when you become symptomatic.
This is what confuses me.
Yes.
You can carry the virus while you're vaccinated, yes?
Yes, you can.
So if the theory is to send kids home so that they don't spread it, they're still spreading it at school. They're just all
They
vaccinated.
can. So it's about viral loads as well, right? So you have a significantly lower. So those with a higher viral load have an increased risk of spreading the disease. If you are vaccinated, the chances of you developing a very high viral load and then subsequently becoming somebody that will spread the disease is significantly lower. If you are unvaccinated, and because you don't have any vaccine or antibodies against the virus, then you have a greater risk of developing a higher viral load. The higher the viral load, the more infectious you are. So that's the thinking behind that. And if you think about it, it makes sense.
That does make sense. The problem is, and this is when you talk about the internet and everything else, right? There's very smart people talking about completely opposite of that, where the viral load in vaccinated are carrying high amounts there as well, as much as the unvaccinated. And so when I hear that, I go, listen, for work, for older people, I get it. For kids, what I don't understand is why we would separate the two. Because at the end of the day, when you look at Alberta, no kids have died, like zero. And I go, like, we should be encouraging them to be in school and having healthy things. I know this isn't, you're not putting the rules in schools. I just curious for your thoughts on it because, well, as is the mother, right? Like,
absolutely. And I mean,
we're all trying to make sense.
It's a fair question. And, and you certainly don't want to discriminate. And, coming to my earlier point about, does my kid need to get a vaccine to protect Uncle Bob, right? Who's unvaccinated and blah, 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 right? It's a tough one. It's tough. Sean, it's really tough, right?
What's
I don't
becoming...
know. I don't know what the right answer is. But that's my take has to do with viral loads and the potential for acquiring disease, significantly lower risk if you're vaccinated, significantly higher risk if you are. So if you're a vaccinated symptomatic person, you can have high viral loads, but probably by then you're at home, right? Or you've been tested.
How about this one? A listener wanted to know why do the reactions from the second one, she was vaccinated. She wanted to know why the second dose always seems to have harsher reaction, I guess.
I don't know whether that's necessarily true. Like, I think I hardly had a reaction for my second dose. My first dose was kind of minimal symptoms. Perhaps I'm not sure. It varies for different people. Some people have a really bad reaction, and some don't. It varies. Could it be? I'm, as I said, I'm not a virologist. I'm not an infectious disease specialist. Could it be because you're already kind of sensitized to it, right? And your body is now mounting a more potent response, perhaps. I don't know. If I had to, as I said, I'm not a specialist in the field.
I appreciate you taking a crack at it. So I had a listener ask kids sports. We've seen out of Ontario a couple of different hockey organizations that are going to mandate that kids have the vaccine to play. Is there any reason in your mind why? I mean, obviously, transmission amongst kids. We've already talked this through and through. But to play a sport, like, do you see any reason if you're out on the ice surface playing hockey, why it would matter?
Another controversial question. Like, I mean, I don't know. I wanna see kids. I want to see kids playing. I want to see. I'm a sports fanatic. I want to see kids playing. And of course, I think we need to look at it globally in terms of what is the risk. People, kids out on the ice, low risk of transmission, extremely low risk of transmission. But once they get back into the locker rooms, put a mask on, right? Let the parents be masking in the stands, because this is what we want to see. But following basic public health measures, wash your hands, social distance, all of that stuff. Yeah, I want to see kids playing. Go out and play. That's what I want to see. Because I mean, I want to play, but I can't. It sucks.
Here's one on natural immunity. It's a lady who's just under the age of 40, has had COVID-19, and she's wondering, should she get vaccinated, or will natural immunity work?
So, lots of people bash this natural immunity kind of conversation. Does natural immunity work? Yes, it does. Absolutely. And you can probably argue that now if you've been infected with Delta and you recover, you are probably more safe than me, who's been double vaxxed, right? So does it work? Yes, but we're not sure how long it works and how effective natural immunity is. So that's the difference. One of the ways that I kind of like to think about it and is when you are vaccinated. So when you go for a vaccination, they ask you the questions: are you well? Are you having cough, fever? How are you feeling? Feeling great? Okay, get vaccinated. Second shot, same deal, right? So I like to think about it like this: when you are vaccinated, you are being vaccinated with an immune system that is completely intact. Okay, because you are well. You're not sick, you're well. So the immune response that your body is going to mount to the vaccine is 100%, or close to 100% as it can, because you have a completely intact immune system. So the chances of you developing a good immune response is very, very high. When you are infected with any infection, COVID-19, influenza, whatever, your immune system takes a knock, right? Sometimes your white cell count drops, right? Your lymphocyte counts drop. We see this, we know this because this is what we see. So your immune system is not functioning at 100% capacity. Then you start developing antibodies with an immune system that is not 100% immunocompetent. So what is the quality, so to speak, of the immunity that you develop? I don't know. Would it be as effective as vaccinated immunity? Probably not, because your immune system has now developed antibodies to with an immune system that is not 100% immunocompetent.
I always thought natural immunity, you get it. I'm going back to being a kid and chickenpox. And
chickenpox.
Everybody always brings up chickenpox.
Yes.
I remember having chickenpox. Like,
yes.
Missed my Christmas carnival because of it.
Yes.
Isn't that good for life now that I've had it?
Yeah, but we don't know, right? Because the thing is, so when did we start doing the vaccination? Probably around 2000 and maybe 2000.
Okay.
right? 2000, early
Rough.
2000s,
Sure.
right? Prior to that, I mean, probably none of us are vaccinated. My age, your age, young guy like you, even a young guy like you, Sean, is probably not vaccinated from against chickenpox. An old guy like me, definitely not. But my 17-year-old is. So is he gonna get shingles? I don't know. Maybe it's too early, right? These guys that have been vaccinated are probably 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So do we know whether they're going to get shingles one day? I don't know. So is the vaccinated immunity better than natural immunity? Because you and I could get shingles at any time. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question is.
Yeah, I guess I just.
I guess time will tell whether the kids that have got vaccines against chickenpox are going to end up having shingles. I don't know.
You mentioned 80% a lot with the vaccination. I just when I hear you talk about natural immunity or people who have had it and they develop the same antibodies, and I'm paraphrasing here because I go, geez, why don't we just add in the people that have had COVID-19 as well then? Wouldn't that put us close to the 80%? Or is that just wrong thinking? I can be completely wrong on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's a good thought, right? And I've had that thought before. Is do you add those that have become infected to that to that group that we consider now fully vaccinated? I don't know.
Because I don't know. I'm literally
this is
here.
It's so early in this pandemic that antibody studies, which are ongoing, need, and so the studies will be coming out shortly, right? To kind of compare natural immunity to vaccinated immunity. Is vaccinated immunity the equivalent to natural immunity? How long does vaccinated immunity last as opposed to natural immunity? All of those are still to come, and we as a medical community will take in that information and use that evidence to develop protocols and policy. And let me tell you, our policy and protocols are not going to be dictated by Pfizer or by Moderna or by AstraZeneca or any of these guys, right? So I'm not in anybody's pocket, and none of my colleagues are in any of these guys' pockets, right? And I think that's very, very important. We look at the evidence and develop policy based on the evidence that we see, right? We're not going to kind of prejudge what is going to happen, because that's not the way we do science, right? That is not appropriate scientific protocol.
Have you seen anybody who's had COVID get COVID again?
Yes.
Yes. So you've seen a person have COVID twice?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to hear, because I've heard that that's not the case. Obviously it is.
Look, I mean, you can get COVID after being vaccinated. You can get COVID after you've had COVID once. Because the thing is, so we've done a little study at our clinic, because I've had numerous patients that come to me and they say, "Hey, Kevin, I can guarantee you, Kevin, I had COVID. I had COVID in December or January, December of 2019, I had COVID. I had all the symptoms. I was in Mexico, I was here, I was there. And I can tell you I had COVID, I guarantee you." And then, the wife comes in, "Yes, he had COVID. I also had COVID." So fine. So we kind of, I said to my nurse, "You know what? Let's get an antibody test, right? Let's get an antibody test, and we'll get the patients in, take their names as soon as we get the kit." So we ordered a kit from the US, and we said, okay, what we're going to do is, we're not sure whether these things work, right? Because we bought them off, some site. So, seemed reputable, but you never know, off the internet. So we bought a kit. I think we bought 25 or 50 test kits for antibodies, right? Because once you have COVID, you develop antibodies to COVID. So it's not an antigen test. Antigen is to check if you've got COVID. Antibodies is to see if you've got immunity to COVID, right?
Right.
So they wanted antibody testing. So we had a group of 3 controls. So patients that we know had COVID in the last month to 4 to 6 weeks. So we said, we phoned them up and said, hey, listen, we're doing this test. We know that you had COVID. Would you be so kind as to be our guinea pigs? And we just want to do a test. So we ran tests on 3 of our patients that had COVID in the preceding 4 to 6 weeks, and they were all positive, antibody positive. So then we said, okay, now that we know that this test works, because the thing is, if you had COVID, of course, you'll have antibodies. So we said, okay, now we know that this test works. Let's call our guys in that had requested an antibody test. And most of them would have been probably at least minimum 9 months post when they thought that they were infected. So we were doing these tests probably 6 to 9 months post. So I think we started doing this test sometime in the summer. It's probably like 6 to 9 months. Well, actually longer. No, what are we now? Probably longer than that. Yeah, this was 2019. No, this would have been over a year or close to a year. So I think, we probably started early, either spring or, it would have been at least a year. And none of them were positive. We've run probably 10 or 15 tests and nobody had antibodies. So it's either that they didn't have the disease at all and they may have had something else, or their immunity had dropped off so significantly that there were no detectable antibodies. So it's kind of hard to say, right? Because they didn't have a test to prove that they did have COVID.
It'd be, just a thought. You think all the things we got going on in the race to get to 80%, the race to, your fears.
Yeah.
You got the vaccine. In theory, you could have COVID and be immune as well, at least for a short period of time, right? Because after you've fought it, you almost would behoove a government to put those out and let people go, if they think they have it, go get those tests done, fast. Because if you do have it, that number can be going up, and we can understand we are eradicating this thing.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, look, I mean, and we are, I think, there are small scale trials or tests that are, antibody tests that are going on right now. And it's that, hopefully that information and those trials or that research comes out and starts to show us the way. Because I mean, we practice evidence-based medicine. Whatever the evidence is, that's what we do, right? And that's the way it should be. We don't just come up with a theory and hope it works. We need to work on what the evidence is. And if there's evidence, research properly, peer-reviewed, reproducible evidence, absolutely.
Yeah.
We go with that.
I follow that thinking entirely. It's interesting though. I mean, when you look around the world, you got Canada did it their way. You got the US doing it their way. You got Mexico, Australia is in a weird world. You got Sweden. Everybody loves to talk about Sweden. You got Israel, right? You got all these different places that rely on, well, they got really smart scientists and medical people. Would we not agree?
Yeah.
All going about it in different ways and having different results. And I always come back to, it's interesting. Sweden's approach is interesting. I don't know if I could sit here and say what would happen in Canada if we took that approach. But it is interesting that there's a country out there that took that approach.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thought because there's so many different ways that a country could have gone about this process. And you're right, different countries took different approaches, and
I'll give you
varying results. And then then we throw the variants in, and whatever approach you have goes out the window. It looked promising, and then you look at Australia, for example. I mean, they were doing phenomenally well, and then you get the variant, and it kind of throws a spanner in the works of what they were trying to achieve. And they essentially got caught with their pants down, so to speak, because the vaccination rate was so low because they were doing so well.
I watch what Australia is going through, and that's where I say medical and political gets twisted. I can't. You look at how they're policing it and everything, and it seems like strange times over there. But I can't really speak to it. I don't think either of us can really speak to it because you're not living it, right? So how do you actually know? Here's your final one. This was a lady. I know I've been keeping you here for a long time. You probably hopped on here going, oh yeah, I'll be 15 minutes, and here we go, closing in on 2 hours. I've really enjoyed it. It's great to open the conversation up and have different people have their thoughts put into it, because if you stick to one train of thought, that's never healthy. So I really appreciate you giving me some time. Here's what a lady had sent me. When you compare 250,000 doses of vaccinations administered in Alberta at the end of February 2021 to over 5.6 million doses administered as of September 9th, how much difference do you think it'll make to this winter's occupancy in hospitals?
Delta variant. So that's the difference, and that's the issue, right? Is the Delta. That's my concern, is the variants. And I said this from the beginning, and from the beginning of the pandemic, the race to try and vaccinate as many people as possible. So 250,000 people as opposed to 5.6 million, will it make a difference? Absolutely, it will. If we had 250,000 people now, we'd be an absolute disaster right now, right? It would be an absolute mess. The fact that we've got 5.6 million people that have been vaccinated is
it's 5.6 million doses. So that would be where your 70% coming from.
Doses. Yeah, that's huge. Look at what happened in our long-term care across Saskatchewan. So this is going back to, I think, data from June, around June. As of early June, we had 88% of long-term care residents in Saskatchewan fully vaccinated, and 94% had had at least one dose. So pretty much 88% fully vaccinated, and then the rest of the 6% had only one dose. In December, we had over 300 cases of COVID-19 in long-term care across Saskatchewan. As of June, there were none. We are seeing breakthrough cases now, Sean, because of the Delta variant, but at the beginning of the summer, we hadn't seen any. And that's our most at-risk population right there in the long-term care facilities, right? So there's no doubt that that in itself, from a local perspective, local evidence shows that it's effective.
Well, I do appreciate you giving me your night and your time. I assume you're staying now because you're.
Yeah, no, I was going to drive back, but it's too late now, Sean. You made me stay in Edmonton for another night.
I just wanted you to have some quality time with your son. That's what I was.
Yes, thank you so much, and I will.
Well, thank you again for hopping on and doing this. I do appreciate you giving me some of your time and your thoughts on this subject.
Thank you so much. I thank you for the work that you do with the Health Foundation and your podcast. It's fantastic. We need to have people like you in our community that are community minded and community driven, which is something that I enjoy and is close to my heart. So thank you, Sean, for the work that you do. Appreciate it.
Thanks again.